Some time ago, I made myself a bodice block pattern because I wanted to make a series of vests and I wanted them to fit perfectly. And they do, and it was great. But I didn't bother making sleeves at the time so I could turn this into a jacket, and now I need them. Hello, it's Icy, that's right, I am back. I have my bodice block and now I need sleeves to go with it. Now, I am using the Winifred Aldrich 6th edition metric pattern cutting for women's wear. You can see a video, I'll link it up in the top corner, where I talk about this as like more a review than anything else. But now the next step is to use this to make some sleeves that go with this. I've had a quick look and allegedly all I need is my sleeve length and the measurement basically of the arm size. So I basically need to measure how big that is from the top corner to the other top corner, and then I can use that to actually go ahead and draw some sleeves. Now, this book is very complicated to use. I don't know if it could be any simpler. There is a certain level of complexity that is required. And I will follow it along. Certainly the bodice pattern was interesting. So there are actually two sorts of sleeves in here, and my plan is to actually draft up both. So we have a single piece sleeve, so that's your standard, the seam goes down the inner arm, and we also have a two-piece sleeve as well. Each of these requires a page of instructions to draft. The bodice, one thing I found with the bodice was it had a lot of ease built into it. It was a very, shall we say, 80s cut when it came out the other end, and I needed to cut out a lot of extra fabric I basically just took out like that much, like down either side. I mean, maybe that'll be fine because obviously I'll be measuring the arm size of like the actual pattern that I've got. So here's hoping that it doesn't go weird, but let's see what we can do. Okay, we have slightly noisy. It's curly paper. What am I going to do? So we have a single piece and a two-piece sleeve, all drawn up and ready to turn into a mock-up. Do I have any concerns? Actually, roll it back. How was it to follow these instructions? It was weird and awkward and not great. One thing that wasn't overly clear, basically it tells you to measure from like the anchor point to the top and then use that measurement to kind of like draw, you know, this part of the sleeve. But I did not realize, I thought I actually wanted you to draw the curve to that number. No. What it wants you to do is to do a straight line. So basically from the anchor point to the top of the shoulder, a straight line, and then you draw the curve on. And by drawing the curve on afterwards, that's how you're adding the ease in for the top of the shoulder. I think this is why we're going to do a mock-up, but I think there's probably too much ease around the top of the shoulder. And the reason I think that is because, well, as previously mentioned, this is a very 80s style pattern book. I'm expecting almost puffed sleeves, possibly. However, it does actually say in the instructions how you do that. And basically, rather than coming out, you know, like say 2 centimeters from this diagonal line, you'll come out, you know, less. So this, basically, so there's less distance around the top. You still need this top point to remain the same because that's your sleeve length from the top of your shoulder to the bone on your wrist is how it, you put your arm like this and then you measure along to the bone at the top of the wrist. I think that's probably going to make it slightly too long as well. That's okay. Hemming the end of the sleeves are fine. The two-piece sleeve, similar thing where you've got some like straight lines and then you add the curves. Obviously it's a bit more complicated because you've got the long curves. So one thing you need to be careful of as well, because it's a two-piece, you need to check that the distance for the back of the sleeve and the front for that matter, the two seams are actually the same distance. So you're going to have a seam from the back point there all the way down to the wrist. So there's the inner small piece and the bigger out piece. You need to check with a tape measure that those are the same, because otherwise when you sew them together, it's not going to line up properly. So far as I can tell, yes, they're the same. So the next step is to make a mock-up. I'm going to cut another mock-up of the actual bodice pattern because all of those have been chopped up and reused, so I don't actually currently have an in-piece mock-up, so to speak. Then make two sleeves, one of each, and then sew them in, and then judge, make sure that they fit, work out which sleeve I think will be best for this future imagined project that I'm extremely excited about and is not Victorian, and then go from there. So let's try that. Right, so pattern turned into a mock-up. Have some thoughts. Okay, so in general, not too bad. There's a couple of weird things going on here. Okay, so this is the single piece sleeve. Length is, positioning wise, pretty good. Length is fine. Dimension is fine. The amount I've taken off from the square, probably another centimeter, would give me probably the best kind of cuff size, if that makes sense. I think that's probably pretty good. There's some weird pulling here where this is like this part of the sleeve is not wide enough. I'm not sure. I think it's sewed properly. Like I don't think I've grabbed anything extra. Like it's on the drawn seam. So I would say there I need to add minimum of a centimeter, maybe 2. So yeah, I'll unpick that and then re-sew that and then see what I get. Shape of the shoulders is pretty much exactly right. I mean, I use this as a mock-up, like the bodice piece a lot, so that's all cool. Now, the 2-piece arm sleeve. On this sleeve, I did a sanity check of measured my bicep, laid it out on the pattern, went, yeah, she good. Did I do that on this one? No, I did not. Oh, that's a bit tight. In fact, so tight I had to just put on a short sleeve shirt so I could actually get the thing on. So I will modify that on the pattern. And if you're drawing up from this pattern, that is something to take into consideration. Measure your bicep and check it's going to fit. There were some kind of like notes on the instructions. It's like, you know, if it's size like 8 to 14, add half a centimeter. If it's 16 to something, add you know, like 0.75 of a centimeter. I ignored those. I just went with the lower number, and maybe that's my problem. That could be my problem there. So I will reread those instructions and see if there was something where I should have added additional like volume. It's fine. We'll work it out. But it should be fairly easy to do in that just the kind of the 2 curve lines here, if I just make them, like it's, even the elbow's a teeny bit tight. So if I go to say here and I just add additional volume on the curves on both sides, I think that will take care of it. Like I reckon I need probably I need whatever this is. This is great. This is too tight. Lengthwise, it's perfect. But interestingly, it's perfect without, I left like a 1 centimeter hem. So it's perfect without the hem, actually, and it's perfect on this one without the hem. So for both of the patterns, I need to add a teeny bit. Actually, maybe. It could be perfect without that. Maybe it's perfect with the hem. Anyway, that's fine. So something to take into consideration. And the cuff size is perfect, basically. That's exactly the kind of cuff size that I want on a jacket. It's just spot on. So, and also the shoulder, the amount of volume in the shoulder is perfect. I was expecting this thing to be puffy, like really 80s, like huge puff sleeves, and it is not. It is a perfect sleeve cap. This side, like the shape of whatever the shape I've got going on this side seems to be great. I could probably add a teeny bit more here in the front as well. It's not pulling. I don't know, maybe. It looks pretty good actually. Anyway, I can probably take the shape of the top of the sleeve from this one and put it onto this one, which will help as well. So, and it's, so this will be a, I want to say, not like a mid-season jacket is the plan to make after this. So I don't need it to have a lot of additional ease because I'm probably just going to be wearing, you know, short sleeve shirts underneath it. It's not like I'm going to be having, you know, multiple jumpers. And also I'm planning to make the final thing, not in this video, the next one, out of stretch drill. So like there is sufficient room across the back, but not like a huge amount, but the stretch material will take care of that. And from the actual bodice, sort of turning it into a coat vibe, as opposed to the sleeves specifically, I was in a rush because I wanted to get this done and I had lost some time earlier in the day. I forgot to put the front darts in, but for like a kind of vaguely bomber-ish jacket, I think that's fine. I think that's probably even better if I don't have front darts. I might still, for the patterning, for the final thing, I haven't decided what I'm doing. Do I need, like, I've learned my lesson with the pockets. I've learned my lesson, so I need a way to put pockets in. And I'm thinking if I put seams down and have sort of inseam pockets, that's probably my best option. Additionally, if I'm using the two-piece sleeve, I can actually use this point here, and then the darts here are coming into the side seam, but I could move them so they come into the arm seam, and then I can take like a curved line sort of around from here and down. Or I can have like a vertical lines as well. I haven't decided yet, that's all still up in the air. But sleeve-wise, pattern following, not bad. Not bad. Yeah, I'm gonna redraw up and probably make a second mock-up of this one. And I'm going to, I don't know, rig something. I might just chop the top of the head, sleeve head, and add some extra volume or something and redo that, and then we see how we go. Mock-up number 2. In fact, pattern number 2. Yes, that's right. I have no idea what I did. I completely stuffed following the instructions before. I think the thing that tricked me was you kind of go like, you draw up the shape of the arm's eye from the pattern, and then you mark some points, and then you start drawing up like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But then, once you've got some of those numbers, you take those back into the A, B, C, D of the arm's eye, and then you calculate F and P, B, P, and a few other ones from there. I just winged that originally, wasn't quite sure what was going on, just put something in that looked vaguely right, and it was not. So we have a much better two-piece sleeve with room to flex. So there's sufficient room here now. It's actually slightly bigger now than that one, but they're still fine. The sleeve head, you can see it's got a little too much volume, just a little bit. So I'm just going to end up taking out some of the curve of that, not the length, I guess, because we still need it to be 60 centimeters long from the tip of the shoulder, but just a little bit of the volume, so doesn't sit puffed. It's not bad, it's just slightly too much. The other thing I did was recut the front curve for the one-piece sleeve, and we're going to pretend I did that on purpose and just cut off the top bit so I can test that, but whatever. And it's better. It is better, but you can see it's still not quite there. So you can see on this side, even this side, to be honest, could probably actually come forward by, I think, maybe even a centimeter. So I think what I need to do is, if it's got to come forward by a centimeter, I don't know if that actually needs to change the actual jacket as well. Might need to get cut in by a centimeter, and then that follows the line. Possibly. I probably need to just try on some other jackets I own, and I'm not trying to sew, and see what they look like. So it's pretty good. I'm still gonna go for the two-piece sleeve. I'm satisfied with how that's coming. I think I can probably just wing the pattern from now. I don't think, I'll just take off a bit of the curve, but I think I should be able to just cut it out of the final material when I get to that part. So yeah, so I kind of look at me making another thing. So once again, a mini review. Is the book easy to follow? Not overly. It's a bit confusing, honestly. Is it harder than any other book? Probably not. Look, I haven't compared against any other pattern following types of guides, but I mean, I get there. If you had not really done a lot of, would I recommend this book for somebody who hadn't necessarily done a lot of sewing? No, because I already know what shapes shoulder, the top lines of shoulders should be, and I'm relatively confident with sewing things together and then going, oh, is this fitting me? Oh, is this not? Where's it being weird? It's fine, but if you didn't have that level of familiarity, it would be very hard to follow. Like, it would get really, it was confusing enough, and I know what I'm doing. So yeah, are there any better books? There could be. This one works. It's giving me things, as you can see, this is fine. And also the other thing I'd say is, now that I worked out how to follow the patterns properly, those particular instructions would work for any arm side, because this was the bodice where I took out a whole, like 4 centimeters down the side from what I got out from the pattern. So the instructions work as long as you follow them. But there we go. So I've got myself, all I'm going to do now is basically transfer these back onto cardboard and then mark those as permanent patterns, and I have myself pretty good pair of sleeves. So I'm kind of happy, and this leads into the following project, which I'm really excited for, but you will see that in a future video. So thank you so much for joining me here today on the YouTubes. I very much appreciate it. You can also find me on the Mastodons, if you've heard of it. It's a open source social network with no advertising at all, not even needing an ad blocker. I like it there. And there's lovely sewing people too. And you can also find me on Instagram. So do come over and say hello in either of those places as well. I would love to see you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.